first approval?
Yes. Okay, we are now in session, so I will call this meeting to order of Inner Township Fire Department. And we'll start with the land acknowledgement statement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. And moving on to approval of the agenda, are there any additions to the agenda before we move ahead with approval? Seeing none, I will, the recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Steve and Shirley, is there any further discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Does any member wish to declare a pecuniary interest? Seeing none, you may declare at any time throughout the meeting if one should arise. Minutes of previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the Inner Township Joint Board of Management meeting held on November 13th, 2024 be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Winters and Will. Any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We are on to presentations. So for presentations, any person who wishes to make a presentation to the board must register with the clerk at least 7 days in advance of the scheduled meeting. To register, you can complete the online delegation form at www.jordanbluffs.ca/delegations or call the clerk's office at 519-376-2729, extension 602. And today we have intact public entities about our annual insurance renewal. And welcome, Tony.
We've exposed with that podium.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Comiso. I work for Intact Public Entities. I've been with the firm now for over 16 years. So originally hired in 2008 with Frank Cowan Company, and then in 2019, Intact Insurance purchased Frank Cowan Company. And I'd like to explain to people the largest Canadian insurance company purchased the largest municipal insurance provider in Ontario. So it's been quite the transition since that time. There's been rather turbulent activity within the insurance industry, but always a pleasure to come to Georgian Bluffs. I've been to the Township Council many times, but this is my first opportunity to address the Fire Board. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to keep this delegation short and sweet. And today we're going to basically focus the discussion along your annual insurance renewal. So every year, the Fire Board's insurance renews. We actually moved your renewal date to January 1st. So effective going forward is it now a January 1 renewal, which coincides with the township's insurance renewal. So the document that I'll be referencing today is a document that we produce every year. It is a reference document. It's a guide. It basically details all of your insurance coverages, your insurance limits, your deductibles. And in this document, it is, I'd say it does a great job of kind of explaining exactly what the insurance is required for. So on page, let me just get the right page for you. On page 5 of that document, I hope everyone can see it. It starts right away with your general liability section, which would probably, besides the fleet insurance for Inner Township, this would probably be the second most important policy that we have on your program. And you can see there's a limit of $15 million per claim with a $10,000 per claim deductible. So that is something new. This deductible was just changed at this renewal, and it was nothing that happened. It was just simply new deductible standards that our firm is putting in place, and we're applying a lot of deductible standards throughout Canada. So that is one change that is different from last year. Probably another insurance policy that you might not be aware that you have, but is your environmental liability. So this would be a pollution claim from a third party. So if the fire hall was called to a scene and they are doing their job and somehow some chemical spills went onto a third party or a neighboring property, and they were to come after the township or the board in that instance, this is the policy that would respond to that. So you have $1 million of coverage there with a $2 million aggregate. Those would be the two main policies for your casualty section. On the next page, you'll see we have a full list of coverages for the building primarily, but all the insured assets. And what we did is we actually included our municipal property wording. So this is the same thing that a lot of our municipal clients get. This is the basic package, but you'll see there are a lot of these coverages probably don't apply to the fire board themselves, but again, it's the base minimum that we start with, and then from there we can increase or decrease limits. We did just recently increase the limits of your contents to $700,000. That was just due to a meeting we had with staff, just to update that value because we felt it was outdated, and we actually didn't have an updated listing of those contents. And then finally, the last policy on page 9 is the fleet policy. That policy also carries a limit of $15 million per claim. The deductibles vary per vehicle, so depending on the value of the specific unit would determine the deductible that applies for it. And then on the next page, you'll see the cost breakdown. This is usually where people start throwing stuff at me, but I appreciate that we're keeping everything very civil here. So the only change on this page would be under the property section. So because we did increase your contents limit, that number now should read $16,788. So your new total annual insurance premium is actually $72,875, and that represents an 8% increase. So I'd say over the last 6 months, every insurance renewal that has come across my desk, regardless of the size of the municipality, whether it's a county, a township, a village, or a city, that doesn't matter. They were all between 6 and 9%. Everything was kind of in that range. So even with the increase in coverage, you guys are still in that average. I know it's still an increase, but throughout the insurance industry, the last 3 years, like I said, it's been very turbulent. And that's simply due to a fact of a lack of capacity, which basically means the insurance companies, they do not want to take on more risk. Their appetite is still very minimal. I'd say over the last few months, we're starting to see that change, and the insurers are definitely starting to want to take on new risk and take on more property, more assets. But this all stemmed from inflation. I think that's something the insurance industry is still trying to catch up on. But with the inflation factors the way they are, and with the amount of property related claims that the industry has been seeing over recent years, they cannot catch up. So that's where you see the largest adjustment on your program. Again, it's industry wide. It's nothing specific to the board, but I just thought I'd explain that for the board. On the next page, you'll see where we listed on, this is page 11 now I'm referencing. These are all the changes that were made. Like I say, we had to implement some new deductible standards. These were all done as per industry standard. We use a 5% building inflation for the building in the city there. And I did have a page for options. It's something I did want to bring up to the board. I wanted to double check 2 things. Number 1, most fire departments nowadays have drones. So I want to make sure that Inner Township does not have a drone currently in force. And, okay, that's good because
Jeff's shaking his head back.
I think every fire department wants a drone, but they are very costly and you need a separate insurance policy. It's an aviation risk, so it's a completely separate policy you would need. So just keep that in mind if you're ever having that discussion.
What would that policy cost for a drone?
Depends on
Approximately.
approximate. Okay, I have one fire department. It's $11,000 a year, but this unit is massive. I swear this thing is this big and it does everything. But I have other ones that are like maybe this big and they don't even want property coverage on it. They just want liability coverage and it's about $1,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I did quote earth and floodquake coverage for the building at the hall there. It's $500 annually. If you wanted us to, if the board wanted to consider that option, because right now there is no coverage for earthquake or flood coverage. So just keep that in mind. And then the final note was, on our municipal program, we have a counselor's accident policy, which is basically a mini life insurance policy for any members of council. And I wanted to offer that to the board as well. If you think it's something worth pursuing and quoting, I would need some information to gather. I would need to know the age and the occupations of each member, and then we could quote based on those numbers. But this would just cover, like I said, it'd be a life insurance policy. So God forbid something did happen, your estate would get up to $250,000 for a death benefit. And then there's a slew of other coverages that would be applicable depending on how much you're traveling. If you think it's necessary for those members to have the board members' accident coverage, like I say, once I get that information, I can provide a quote at a later date. But those were the main things that I wanted to review with the board. On the second half of that report that we do annually, it actually breaks down the various coverages that we do have with the board. It's all laid out there for the sake of.
Stop there for a minute,
Yeah.
Tony, and just on that for the board. For any of us on council, we would already have that as councilors, would we not? So it would only be for public members of the board?
So through you, not to speak on behalf of Meaford's insurance, I'm assuming you would have similar, that yes, the members of council are covered through that. It is our two citizen
Yes.
members who, in essence, at this time don't have.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that while we were at that point.
Oh, great question. And that policy pays him regardless, Mayor. So if you have two, it will still pay both policies, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, the rest of the report, that again, this is a report we do annually. It is all laid out there, the various coverages that apply. And then on the very back of that report is the schedules of coverage. So this is what we list that we are insuring. So it has the fire hall itself and the contents, and then the fleet schedule itself. That's at the very last page there. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Questions from anyone?
Not that it matters to our policy, but what's happened in LA, is that going to affect Ontario?
Personally, I don't think so because they've already had insurance challenges in California. And it's a big state, right? It's just like Ontario, it's a massive state, province. But so in California, those wildfires, there's a lot of talk about a lot of the people who are not insured. They couldn't get insurance to begin with, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those areas are zoned for that. Just like in this area, there's certain homeowners that probably can't get flood insurance because they're maybe located in a floodplain. In BC, we insure a lot of municipalities that can't qualify for earthquake coverage because they're too close to the fault line. So I think the insurance industry is pretty well adapt to that. If something like that happened in Canada, I would say yes, there would definitely be an effect. They just released the numbers this morning, but 2024 was the worst year in terms of property claims in the insurance industry on record.
For North America or
For Canada.
for Canada? Okay.
Worst year ever. It beat 2016 when Fort McMurray was on fire. Yeah, 2024 was worse. So we had the flooding here in Toronto was bad. The hailstorms out west, like there's a whole list of different storms. Again, it was really sporadic. It was spread out throughout the year. Whereas in 2016, it was kind of that one event that, you had a whole municipality that was basically in flames, right? So those numbers just came out, so I'm sure the press will be talking about it, but I think in the foreseeable future, regardless of what insurance company you're with, property values and what the insurance company is covering you for, though that's going to be their primary concern. And we already went through a meeting with staff to talk about the insurance value at the hall to see if it made sense, if it was up to standard, and we felt comfortable with the value. But I can tell you every municipality is going through these issues right now. Are our assets insured to value? When was the last time we had an inspection? When was the last time we had an assessment done? And if it's more than 5 years old, it's outdated. So I know at our firm, we implemented a new standard. If the building's over $1 million in value, we have to inspect it every 5 years. That's just a standard now, right? Anything under that, we leave it to the municipality to determine where they think the value should be. So we're already going through those motions, but I still think, like, to your question, property values are the number one concern right now in the insurance industry. You asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you it was cyber threats. Now it's property. Everything's related to property.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Trevor.
Through you, Chair, and just because you mentioned it, cybersecurity, and I've just got this package now, so I haven't had a chance to really look at it. Is there some protection in there for cybersecurity in relation? Do we need anything for the fire halls?
There is no current cyber protection on this particular policy. Through you, would you need protection? Depending on, I don't think so, because is there even a dedicated website for the fire hall?
Sam, go ahead.
Through you, all of the cyber is done through Georgian Bluffs server and Georgian Bluffs materials that is covered under Georgian Bluffs cyber insurance, which they do have. That makes sense.
Any other questions?
Appreciate it, Tony. I mean, I would say it is what it is. Normally, I would say to you, where can we reduce our costs? But there is no real cost savings here. It's based on value. I totally get it, right? So there isn't a lot of risk where we can sit down and minimize our risk. It is what it is. So appreciate your presentation.
Thank you very much. No, fire services is serious. It's a staple. It's a necessary service. I wasn't sure, Mayor, if you wanted to go through your claims history or not with the board. It's totally up to you.
Anybody want to hear that?
I'm good. You work out of the old town office, or?
So I live down in Ingersoll Way, and I service Gray, Bruce counties, Huron and Perth counties, Lambton and Middlesex counties. So there's 56 different municipalities under my jurisdiction. It's my job just to spread the good word, make sure people are getting what they pay for.
It's busy.
It's fun. I love it.
Questions or concerns from staff? Okay. Sam, go ahead.
For you, Tony, you mentioned about coverage for citizens. Is that something that the board wishes for us to obtain the quote information on? I guess that would be my only question.
I'm never dying, so I don't need it.
It's for the citizens over
Yeah.
here.
No, he said we could have it both. He said we could.
Wouldn't that be double dipping?
Yeah.
What does everyone think?
I think we should hear from the citizens.
Would you want to be covered under the insurance? Okay. Is that something we should have, though, in writing, saying that they've opted not to?
This meeting is more than sufficient. I'll make a note for the file.
This meeting is recorded, so.
Even better.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Safe travels today.
Well, thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
So, moving on, we have no delegations for items on the agenda. No correspondence. We're on to staff reports. First one is Fire Chief, ITFD 2025-01, 2024 Quarter 4 report. The recommendation is that report ITFD 2025-01 be received for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Okay, thank you. And Grant? And I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, I just, if there's any questions on that report, but I just really want to stress and say thanks to the firefighters for our annual Christmas toy drive. I just wanted to let you, the board members and everybody know that you did a great job, an amazing job. Well, I think there's over 100 kids this year for the toy drive in this area. So that shows you the need for it. And as well as we were very active with the public relations stuff with the Halloween. Our firefighters go out and they go to Bogner, they go to Annan, Leaf, Shallow Lake, and they do the areas of Kill Scythe, and they just, they purchase candy and give it out to the kids that are out trick or treating. So they're throughout the municipality on Halloween. So they did a great job. And also we had apparatus at a couple of functions out in Shallow Lake. To support those, and the firefighters enjoy doing that stuff. It's kind of the perk of giving back to the community and seeing the smiling faces. It's great. So,
Thank you for doing that. It was interesting, the jingle and mingle evening at Allen's store in Shallow Lake, with the truck sitting right downtown in the middle with the lights going. People came over that West Hill and just went, slowed right down. It was interesting to watch. Well attended by everybody and appreciated that the fire truck was there. Does anyone have any questions for Jeff?
Just whenever I make for you to Jeff. Just looking at the 2024 Q3 emergency response breakdown, Jeff, nothing specific about that. But is there any way as a board member we could get a breakdown of which one of those would be like a mutual aid or a automatic aid call?
yeah.
Is there a way of saying, in each of those little subsections?
Yep.
Just something, just to break it down, so we've got an idea.
Our mutual aid would fall under the other responses, but I could get in and tweak that app to show you those breakdowns. Yep. Yep. And I can manually add in as well. So, yep.
Chair,
Go ahead.
Jeff, I was just wondering, a year ago, we kind of sat down and put forth monies towards NFPA training and standards. I was just wondering during this period of time, kind of in conclusion that's up here through 24 is where in regards to overall training, what kind of certificates or certification have we achieved and the breakdown of that?
So we have, I can give you the exact breakdown, but we do have, we're fully compliant now. We are firefighters, we're fully certified to firefighter 1, 2, and hazmat ops. And then through the legacy, we legacy some of the senior firefighters and their legacy to firefighter 1 and 2 hazmat and AutoX. So we are compliant with those levels.
And in no regards, my questioning where there's, I was just wanting to just further clarify during this past year of training, what and how many firefighters have achieved certain aspects of NFPA certifications that was put before the board that we needed the funds for. I just want to know, like, what have we hit the goals that you wanted? Like, as in, was there pump ops training being done this past year? Were there people who had hazmat? Because legacy has been done now for like 6 and 7 years, but can you just explain?
This is the different, so I'll start with we had 6 guys did their pump ops this in the last year. We had firefighters that did the hazmat core ops and awareness to get their level. So now they're fully certified firefighters. So we had 4 do that as well. But we did get the guys into their pump ops, and now we have another 6 this year that we're trying to get into pump ops as well. And at this time, we're waiting for the OFM to they're running some of their specialized training courses like an AutoX and stuff like that. We're just waiting for to hand down that information to us. Hazmat, ice water, rope rescue, those are the ones that are kind of still in the trial basis. AutoX does have a course. We're just going to start moving forward with that stuff as well.
So it'd be safe to say that the past year we've had 10 firefighters that received additional training to get NFPA certification.
Yeah, and then we've had other firefighters that have done like some of the fire prevention portion, pub education and stuff like that. We've had some volunteers take that as well. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And so then I need to call the vote on that. All in favor? That is carried. Next item is over to our treasurer for the 2024 quarter four financial update. Recommendation is that staff report COR 2025-01 be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Shirley and Will? Okay. Sam, over to you.
You through you. So in front of you, you have your Q4 financial update. This one does have the actuals that were invoiced or paid as of December 15th. So it is not a projection estimate. This is the actual at a snap point in time, recognizing that many invoices and expenditures can take 2 weeks for processing. So we are in essence missing a month's worth of expenses and revenue within the number shown here. When looking at the variances, we do have a shown administration as being under budget. This is largely due to a timing difference as to when salaries and benefits would be posted. We also did have a temporary staff vacancy throughout the year on your administration side, which was backfilled through some of your volunteers performing additional duties. You do have overages on your volunteer side, and that overage is going to be more still, because again, the timing difference, we do have additional expenditures within there that need to be recorded. Communications, it is very common for Grey County to invoice us the beginning of the following year for our portion of their program around fire. That's because they wait for the whole year, have their number to know what they are invoicing out to each participating fire association. The fire hall, we do have some additional expenditures that we need there, but we do anticipate that it will come in under budget. Police is another large one where we are expecting to be over, partially because as part of the municipality, you have to follow all expenditures and it's reported at a certain cost. So you did have some expenditures that you have an offsetting revenue for, that you received from your insurance related to the truck that was in an accident in December of 2022. There was a large portion, about $8,000 of those repairs that we had to incur that was outside of insurance. So that is another driving factor around the increase in the fleet expenditure. When we're looking at the revenue side, we anticipate MTO fire costs to be slightly higher than revenue or than budget. When we are looking at selecting a budget, we try to look at a 5-year average of what actually has been invoiced to them, as MTO only pays us for calls which occur on their highways. Miscellaneous, this is where that insurance reimbursement is reported for financial purposes, so you will see that it is over your budget. Overall, we were anticipating at the time of writing this report a operating deficit of approximately $30,000. When projecting out and reevaluating what actuals are to date, we are still anticipating, we still do anticipate a deficit, but it's went down to about 25,000 compared to what we were anticipating at the time of writing the report of 30,000. I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sam, you probably, sorry, through you,
Yep, go ahead.
Sam, you probably answered this numerous times before, but I have to ask the question. We have a surplus because we didn't spend all our capital money. We're having an operating deficit.
Yes.
It just, I mean, we're all as municipalities facing tough budget pressures. It just seems odd that we put money into one bank account and pull it from another to replenish. Is there not a way that the board can look at that and say, you know, we have X number of dollars going into capital reserves because we have surplus, but we want to take some of that to pay off our deficit? What I'm trying to avoid is I don't want to sit here in 2 years' time and then say, well, we've got all these deficits that we haven't paid for. We just came through that process, right? So that jumps off that report. But
Go ahead.
So through you, absolutely, if the board wishes to provide the direction that you would like any operating deficit to be funded from the reserve, I would ask that you amend the motion that is in front of you to give that direction.
Can we wait till the final figures are in, or? I agree with you, 100%.
no, and that's, I just want to have that conversation.
Yes.
So we don't repeat the conversation we had 2 or 3 months ago, right? Yes.
Yeah.
We'll have that final, maybe at the next meeting in what, 2 months?
With recent changes around our local BDO office now being bought from MNP, we are still waiting on direction as to when the financial audit for this organization might be scheduled to know what a final number might be. I would definitely be much more comfortable at the next meeting giving you a more definitive amount, but I can't guarantee that the amount at that next meeting is going to be the exact ending amount.
Yeah, I understand that.
We could also, though, give that further direction about the deficit at that meeting because we would be that much closer. Okay. So that would be
Yeah,
at next meeting, business arising out of the minutes of this one.
good thought, Rick.
We just wanted to set the scene.
Yep, no,
Planted the seed.
it's a good point. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. So we have no unfinished business, no new business. Does any member of the board wish to make an inquiry?
Yeah, I'd like to,
Ron, go ahead.
where is the budget stand with both municipalities right now?
So as in whether both municipalities have passed it or,
Yes.
Right.
Where are we?
okay, can I turn to you for an answer on that one, Sam?
Through you, I can speak on behalf of Georgian Bluffs.
Sorry, through you. We are now just approving those minutes, so they will go to the subsequent council meeting for adoption.
So they will be approved through Georgian Bluffs sometime in February, whatever our next council meeting in February is. So that would then, they would be going to Meaford for the same thing?
Through you, so yes, so February 12th would be the next meeting of our council where those minutes would be ratified.
Right.
I can't comment on where they are with respect to actually approving the budget.
I can comment if I may, or
no, go ahead.
we're gonna be at least 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we've started from scratch. But the fire side, I can damn near guarantee you there'd be no issues with approving what we did for our budget on the fire department.
So the minutes from here today will be going to your council. And at that point, when you approve those minutes, does that mean you've approved the budget for ITFD? Or you're just starting your budget process again?
We're just
Yeah,
starting
we're
the
just
budget
starting,
process again. Scratch, but it's not gonna take us long.
Does that answer your question then, Ron?
It will be approved.
Yeah, I'm just, where I'm getting a little confused here is we've had 2 years in a row that we've been over budget for what we were supposed to be allowed. How long do we do this before something happens.
So I think I would go back to Sam. So when you are creating the 2025, well, probably going ahead to 2026 budget for ITFD, you're looking at past years to make allowance and adjustments through that process.
Like I just know that both councils have dipped into reserves to pass the budget. And my concern is it's not just the fire department. I know that's what we're dealing with, but your councils are dealing with all the departments, and you can't keep going over budget. And
Absolutely correct. Now, Meaford hasn't been over budget on the municipal side for as long time.
Let's go to CAO Logley for the response there.
So through you, Mayor Carlton, I think I can take a stab at answering the board member's question. So municipalities cannot run a deficit. We're not allowed to run a deficit legislatively. And so when we budget at the beginning of the year, both for municipal structures and when we budget for boards such as ITFD, what we're doing is we're trying to cast a die for what we believe we will need in the year. Municipalities and indeed ITFD will have some fluctuation. And so it's very unlikely that you get the money absolutely not the nail on the head at the end of the year. I think as the board has already discussed, it's important to understand where, if you're a little bit over, where you're going to get that from, if you're a little bit under, how you're going to make that up as well. And I think the board's had a conversation, and we could take that back for the year end in terms of using the ITFD's own reserves to help offset any impact of ITFD. I wouldn't overly worry about a reserve, a deficit or an overspend in the order of what you see in front of you today. I think as Councillor Winters, as Board Member Winters, has pointed out, it's very appropriate to not leave those lagging so that the small amounts become big amounts over time and deal with them promptly, as the board has provided direction today to do so on. But I wouldn't overly worry about that number. It's a relatively small number in the terms of the overall operating impact of the board. And as the mayor has indicated, as a board member, the chair has indicated, we make best efforts on the basis of any 1 year to try and refine our estimates for the budget in process for next year to try and get those numbers smaller and smaller and smaller each year. I don't know if that helps. So this deficit doesn't directly impact at this point in the way in which you've provided direction today, does not impact the tax base of either the residents of Meaford or the residents of Georgian Bluffs, as it will be dealt with monies which are already set aside in the ITFD's own reserves.
I'm just trying to get a handle on it. Like, I know that they had set 3%, I think was, wasn't it for the yearly amount we could authorize without having to send it to council for anything up and above that?
Yep.
And
I think it's like probably both our municipal budgets. We have years where we'll end up going a little in deficit, but we also have years where we have a surplus. And I think with Georgian Bluffs, we take any surplus and we put it into reserves to help offset those years when there is a deficit. And I would think the fire department is handled the same way. I can't see us having different rules there. And I'm seeing nods back here. So there will hopefully be years where there's a surplus, and we tuck that away to cover these years as well.
like it's good to see that we can give the fire department what they need to maintain the standards they're at and keep the equipment up to date. I was just trying to understand where we're getting all this money that we don't have. Anyway, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we do not have any closed session today. Next board will meet as regular scheduled on April 15th at 2 p.m. It says 5 p.m. here, so it's 2 p.m. There's no further business. I will now call for adjournment of this meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Rick and Ron, and all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are now